Next speaker is Honorable Dr. Afzal Tahir Saab. He's one of our leading political voices in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Afzal Tahir Saab, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. I thought I will be at the last because I was trying to locate the venue. I represent Kashmir International Front and the history. I think my organization was first to convene an international conference. And we invited Mr. Hamid and 5 other
in
94, 95. And they were not allowed visas from Pakistan. And people were activated from this part of the world. So they should not be allowed to leave that country to participate and to enlighten the people in London. And not only that, that conference was attacked. People were brought over from all over UK, all the fundamentalists. And I remember very renowned academic and human rights activists who brought against Indian human rights violation. And they were sitting there and raising the slogans, Jihad, Zindabad, Mujahideen, Zindabad, in London, in my conference. And these academic and calling them, you are Hindus, you are Kafirs, these kind of things. That was to start with. Well, I will not take your time. We are associated with BNF from the very beginning because we recognize a right of not only the indigenous people, but we recognize the society's formation from the bottom up. We recognize the society form from the lower south to upwards. That is the basis. So we recognize the relation on the voluntary basis and voluntary association. And right of self-determination is fundamental to the people. And where the people have a democratic voice, democratic right, freedom of expression, freedom of belief, freedom of worship, fair justice system, equality, they don't need to resort to violence. But where we promote alternative narratives to the democratic way of promoting urges of the people or grievances of the people as an alternative, and yet we are not elaborating fully what those narratives are. There are few individuals with the power of gun coming in this room and imposing their will on us. These alternative narratives is not in the public domain with fully whether there is a deficiency or whether there is so many other things to educate public at large internationally. And this issue which is going on in different overshadow the conflicts between the states, which is not the case. Now I want to come back to the question of Gilgit Baltistan because my organization, Kashmir International Front, recognize we stand for United States of Kashmir. And legally, we draw our legitimacy from the UN resolution that is based on provisional treaty of accession that legitimize its right and the obligation goes onto the shoulders of the Indian government who took the case to the United Nations. Whether we are in Gilgit Baltistan, whether we are in, which I call Pakistani occupied, whether we are in occupied Kashmir, which is Azad Kashmir, whether we are in Indian occupied Kashmir, whatever terms we use. But our main responses should come from the Indian government legally. It was their responsibility who took the case. Why? For the reunification as it was before, and let the people, whether the people of Gilgit Baltistan, Baltistan National Front have its own narratives, others have its own narratives, National Conference have its own narratives, BJP has its own narratives, our party have own narratives, and it is the natural to every society. They have different narratives. And how we will reconcile between the different narratives? We have the constitutional process and we have the democratic way. People elect their representative, they sit along the table and come to the final conclusion. We are not allowed for this. We are not allowed even to meet in that historical land. Yesterday I raised the question to UNPO president who is from Tibet. The people from Baltistan are not allowed, Baltistan and Kargil, to share their views. I am born and brought up in Rawalpindi, Poonch, which is the border. Poonch was my state. I never allowed to visit that part, and we have to go all the way to Pakistan, if they allowed us, and they have to go all the way to India to see us. We never meet. I have seen the world, but I never see my next place in my life. So we are not first place. We are allowed to exchange our views, to understand each other, to see our grievances, how we would be able to decide the future strategies, which is the narratives of the governments. That Pakistan has the right to self-determination, how the people will decide the narrative of self-determination, or the India. And India is saying that Kashmir is my part, the whole Kashmir, including Gilgit Baltistan and South Kashmir, which is, we disagree. But how, for last 63 years, people are suffering, whether they are in Gilgit, whether they are in Hunza, whether they are in Baltistan, whether they are in Jammu, whether they are in Poonch, whether they are in Srinagar, whether they are in Ladakh. So the cooperative, we are not creating problem for our neighbors, no. What we are suggesting, that let the people to decide. First, create the conditions, create the freedom, create an openness. Create an openness in Gilgit, in Baltistan, in Ladakh, and Kargil, and let the people to meet. Stop the violence. Do not promote the violent activities which promoted by one agency or another agency. I am not accusing one or another. So people will be having an access to create a better understanding, because they are the actors on the ground. The same situation in downwards. Do not promote the violence. Let the people to have exchanges. Develop, the infrastructure, which is very important. Develop the infrastructure. We don't stop it. We will allow India, we will allow Pakistan, Afghanistan, our neighbors, and Chinese to create trade routes. No problem for us. But that should not be on the cost of the people. That should be, as Michael said correctly, there should be the barriers, there should be the conditions that it should not affect the life, it should not affect the indigenous things, but we allow that. At the same time, we should be the authority locally. The people of Gilgit Baltistan, whether they voted for BNF or they voted for somebody else, they should have a right to decide. Having said that, we believe when we say democratic rights, we know and we believe that states are not allowed to promulgate any law which infringe the fundamental rights of a human being. That is the universal, and we recognize this, which is not prevailing in Pakistan as a state. Because in Pakistan, in Saudi Arabia, you cannot challenge the religious laws. I am a Muslim. Okay, it is good for me. But what about a Christian Pakistani? What about a Hindu Pakistani? What about a Jew Pakistani? What about a Zardish Pakistani? So, because we believe that our narratives are the inclusive, state is inclusive. The denomination, the religion, the ideologies are exclusive. That cannot be confined to a specific geographical location. So if we identify a specific geographical location to a specific ideology, that means we are excluding the others who do not subscribe to that specific ideology or belief system. So that is an exclusive, that comes under discrimination, proper discrimination. So we resist this one, and this is not only the Gilgit Baltistan or the Kashmir, this is the people in Pakistan as well. There are people who've been suppressed on this issue. They want an inclusive life in the entire landscape of Pakistan, whether they are Sindh, whether they are Punjab. But because they are like us, they are helpless. The state is patronizing, promoting this exclusive ideology in the entire landscape, which affect us as well in our part of the world. And they are importing constantly an alien ideology in the disguise of religion to exploit the local sentiments, religious sentiments of the majority community. And this creates the whole lot of problem in the entire region. And the worst victim are the minority communities. The minority in terms of religion, the minority in terms of ethnicity, the minority in terms of, I can name you, in Pakistan, a governor was assassinated by his own bodyguard. He was a governor. Even the parliament of that country was not allowed, so scared, to pass a resolution in favor of the governor. So how that kind of behavior and that kind of culture would prevail in this present day and age? It cannot. Maybe it was in the past. We had a life as a Christian, as a Muslim, as a Hindu, but it's not. So the narratives which Baltistan National Front is presenting is the inclusive narratives of the Gilgit Baltistan, equal to all, recognizing people, relation to the land, and we recognize and we support, and I hope that international community will understand the alternative narratives which we are presenting, and they will persuade the authority in the powers who make a difference, that they should not play the games and should come to the terms which is in their own interest. It is in the interest of Pakistani authority to change the course and do not follow the course which is self-defeating and self-destructive. And it is also creating destruction for others. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Dr. Afzal Tahir, and I do share your feelings because I went to India for a conference and then I wanted to go to Ladakh and I was not allowed to go there. And it happened on 2 times actually. So yeah, it's very important that if you want to pursue a path of peaceful dialogue and discourse, then we have to accept alternative narratives, that, as you mentioned. And unfortunately in Pakistan, everything is dictated either by the civilian government or the military regime, and there's no respect for diversity in opinion or in political activity or freedom of expression or any forms of human rights that we all aspire for. And you talked about removing externalities before we could talk about reconciliation with other parts of Jammu and Kashmir, for instance. And the United Nations very clearly says that presence of Pakistani troops and its citizens in Gilgit Baltistan is one of the externalities. And that has to be removed before the stakeholders in Jammu and Kashmir and India and other parts of Kashmir like Valley and Ladakh and Jammu could sit together. So thank you so much for your...
Like Andrew, very important